There's a moment that seems small from the outside, yet it has a way of echoing inside a woman's memory long after the evening ends. It usually happens in a warm room filled with laughter, light, and the easy rhythm of voices rising and falling over each other. Everything feels soft and unthreatening. You're enjoying a conversation with someone, maybe a coworker, maybe a friend of a friend. Nothing romantic, nothing crossing a line. Just two human beings sharing a story, exchanging a harmless smile. Then, without warning, something shifts. It's subtle at first, like the temperature dropping a single degree. You glance across the room and see him, your partner, watching. His face isn't angry. There's no scowl, no glare, no dramatic expression. It's the absence that speaks. The smile missing from his eyes, the small tightness at the corner of his mouth, the way his body stiffens ever so slightly, as if bracing against something invisible. When the moment passes and the room settles back into normalcy, you're left with a quiet ache. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you felt that strange emotional distance open between you, like a thin sheet of glass sliding silently into place. You sense he's bothered, even though he insists he's fine. And maybe you're bothered too, confused, uncertain, even a little guilty for reasons you can't fully explain. Inside you rises a swirl of emotions you weren't expecting. A touch of sadness, because something so simple shouldn't feel so heavy. A flicker of irritation, because you don't understand why a normal interaction can create tension. A whisper of worry, because his silence carries more weight than any argument ever could. For a moment you fight the urge to shrink yourself, to play small, to undo whatever invisible thread you think you might have tugged. It's not a pleasant feeling. It's uncomfortable, unfair, and strangely intimate at the same time. But here's the hidden truth that almost no one talks about. His silence isn't really about you. It's about the storm inside him, one he rarely knows how to name, let alone navigate. Men don't always understand their own reactions in moments like these. What you see on his face is just the surface. Underneath, something older is stirring, something threaded with fear, pride, longing, and the kind of vulnerability men are taught to bury so deeply that even they mistake it for something else. He sees you laughing, genuinely enjoying yourself, open and bright, in a way that makes him remember just how much he wants to keep that light close. There's joy in that, because he loves your liveliness, your warmth, your ability to connect. But right behind the joy comes an unexpected pang, something raw and animal, something that feels like an old bruise being pressed. He doesn't want to feel it. He doesn't choose to feel it. And yet, it rises. A mix of protectiveness and fear, a stab of self-doubt he wishes he didn't have, a flicker of comparison he never asked for. Most men weren't raised with the emotional vocabulary to talk about this. They weren't taught how to sit with it, understand it, or communicate it without feeling exposed. So instead of speaking, they withdraw. Instead of naming the discomfort, they swallow it. Instead of reaching toward you, they retreat into themselves, hoping the feeling passes on its own. It rarely does. What begins as a small twinge grows into a quiet storm swirling beneath the surface. Sadness that he can't fully explain. A sharp edge of fear he doesn't want to acknowledge. Anger not at you, but at himself for feeling something that makes him question his worth. Shame, the kind that whispers he's not enough, that someone else could be more charismatic, more accomplished, more secure. And you, unknowingly, are left standing in the middle of that emotional thundercloud, sensing the tension but unable to see its shape. It's easy in moments like this for frustration to creep in. Easy to feel misunderstood, judged, or unfairly scrutinized for something harmless. Easy to feel like you're walking on glass. easy to feel the sting of being pulled away from the closeness you treasure. But if you look closely, closer than most people ever dare to, you'll find that what unsettles him is not the man you were talking to. It's the reflection of himself he unintentionally sees beside that man. His mind begins replaying quiet insecurities he thought he'd buried long ago. The boy who wasn't chosen. The young man who was compared. The adult who fears not being enough. You might notice how his posture changes when you walk back to him, how he softens the moment you touch his arm, how his breath steadies when you say something only he would understand. These small shifts aren't coincidence. They're clues. Beneath the silence, he is reaching for reassurance without asking for it. He is hoping you'll read the emotions he struggles to translate into words. There is something unexpectedly tender about that. Something that makes your heart ache in a way that's both painful and deeply human. Because at the core of his discomfort is not dominance, not possessiveness, not control, but vulnerability. He's not afraid of you leaving the room. He's afraid of losing the version of himself he hopes he becomes in your eyes. Sometimes what feels like jealousy is actually fear. Sometimes what looks like withdrawal is actually emotional overload. Sometimes what sounds like I'm fine is actually, I don't know how to tell you I'm scared. And fear, in men, rarely comes dressed as fear. It often appears as quietness, sharpness, or distance. Not because he wants to push you away, but because he doesn't know how to bridge the space that suddenly opened between you. If you stay with that moment, not in defensiveness, not in guilt, but in simple awareness, you begin to see the truth most people miss. He isn't pulling away from you. He's pulling away from the version of himself he's terrified might disappoint you. And that is where the real understanding begins. There's a strange kind of sadness in realizing that the person you love is being pulled by forces older than language, older than culture, older even than his own sense of identity. It's like watching someone flinch at a shadow he doesn't fully see, sensing danger in shapes that were carved into the human mind long before any of us existed. What makes it heartbreaking is that he often doesn't understand it either. He just feels something tightening inside him when another man steps into your orbit, something instinctive and unnerving, something he didn't choose and doesn't know how to control. You can see it in the way his eyes follow you without appearing to, the way his shoulders stiffen for reasons he can't articulate, the way his breath becomes shallower for a few seconds before he forces it steady again. He tries to look casual, polite, composed. He tries to be the man modern society tells him he should be: rational, calm, unaffected. Yet deep inside, something ancient stirs, something that whispers of loss, of vulnerability, of the possibility that the connection he treasures could slip through his fingers if he isn't careful. It's unsettling for him. It's confusing for you. And it's rooted in millions of years of human survival. Long before love became poetry, or relationships became conversations about needs and boundaries, human beings lived in a world where trust wasn't a concept, it was a risk. For women, the risk was physical. For men, the risk was lineage. A woman always knew her child was hers. A man never had that certainty. It was a question that lived in the back of his mind, not because he consciously doubted, but because his biology was shaped by generations of men who couldn't afford to be wrong. No man today consciously thinks, "What if the child isn't mine?" And yet the remnants of that ancient fear linger in the nervous system as faint but powerful echoes. It's not logical, but fear rarely is.
It's more like a reflexin, instinctive tightening, a protective surge, a quiet alarm that goes off when he sees you talking to another man with warmth or closeness, or that spark of light in your eyes that he secretly hopes is only for him. Imagine standing alone in a vast forest with no modern world to protect you. Imagine every decision determining whether your family line survives or disappears. Men who were indifferent when their partners formed bonds with other men were men whose genes didn't survive long enough to reach the modern age. The ones who endured were the ones who paid attention, who watched, who guarded. Their vigilance shaped the wiring that all men inherit today. Not because men were possessive monsters, but because the world they lived in demanded caution for survival. There's a bitter sweetness to that truth. It carries both a tenderness and a heaviness. Tenderness, because what he feels is connected to the desire to protect something precious.
He values you deeply, more than he knows how to say. He's wired to keep close what he loves. But heaviness, because this protective instinct sometimes collides painfully with the kind of love you want to love rooted in trust, ease, and freedom. Those instinctive reactions don't always look noble from the outside. They can look like jealousy, tension, or withdrawal. They might even feel controlling or unfair. That's where anger shows up, the kind of anger that burns quietly because you know you've done nothing wrong, and yet you're the one absorbing the emotional impact. You can feel indignation rising inside you, a desire to push back against the invisible pressure his discomfort creates. At the same time, a part of you might feel unexpectedly touched, not because you want to be owned or restricted, but because there is something undeniably human about someone caring enough to be affected. It's messy, complicated, layered with conflicting emotions that sit side by side. Sadness for his struggle, frustration at the tension it creates, fear of misunderstanding, curiosity about the depth behind his reaction, and a faint warmth from knowing your presence matters to him in a way that reaches beyond rational thought. The modern world tells men they should be above their instincts, that evolved masculinity means ignoring biological impulses altogether. So when he feels that sudden surge of protectiveness or discomfort, he often judges himself harshly. He feels ashamed for feeling something primal. He tells himself he's being irrational. He tries to swallow the emotion before it reaches his face, even though it already has. He isn't trying to control you. He's trying to control himself. That internal battle between instinct and identity, between evolutionary programming and modern values, is exhausting for him. You may see only the surface, the quietness settling over his features, the stiffness in his posture. You may think he's mad at you or jealous of someone else, but more often than not, he's angry at the alarm bell ringing in his chest. Angry that something so old and unconscious can still sway him. This is where fear sneaks in. Not the fear of losing you specifically, but the fear of what the emotion means about him. Men today want to be secure, enlightened, emotionally intelligent. They don't want to be the type who bristles with jealousy. They don't want to be the man who seems threatened by a harmless interaction. The fear of becoming that man humiliates them more than the fear of losing you. He feels disgusted with himself for reacting this way. Disgusted at the idea that he could be controlled by something he can't even name. Disgusted that a shadow of ancient instinct can still move through him like an involuntary tremor. That self-disgust can turn quickly into withdrawal, which makes you feel even more distanced, even more unsure. Yet beneath all of that, beneath the fear and the shame and the instinct, lies something surprisingly tender. He feels this way because your presence matters so profoundly that even ancient alarms still wake when someone else steps close. If those instincts were born from danger, what he feels today is born from the magnitude of his attachment. Not fear of betrayal, fear of losing something precious. Not desire to control, desire to protect. The echoes of evolution still move through him, not because he is unevolved, but because he is human. And in the quiet tension of these moments, you both stand at the intersection of past and present, navigating instincts older than memory, while trying to build a love that feels safe enough to rise above them. There's a moment few women ever witness, Not because it's rare, but because men have learned to hide it so well it becomes invisible even to themselves. It happens quietly, beneath the surface of what looks like confidence, competence, or control. It's the subtle trembling of self-worth, the place where a man's deepest doubts live, tucked behind the parts of him he proudly displays to the world. This is the chamber of his mind where the real battle begins. Not against you, not against the man you were talking to, but against the version of himself he fears he still hasn't outrun. Every man carries a story of inadequacy somewhere inside him. Some wear it like a scar across their chest, a memory too loud to ignore. Others bury it so deeply it becomes a ghost, silent yet powerful, shaping the way they stand, speak, love, and protect. The painful part is that many of these wounds were formed long before you ever met him. They were carved during childhood moments where he felt unseen, or during teenage years where rejection stung so sharply he learned to armor up. They were shaped by comparison, by competition, by parents who expected perfection, by a world that demanded strength without showing him how to build it.
When he sees you connect with another man, even in the most innocent way, that old self, the doubtful one, the fragile one, awakens like a shadow moving behind his ribs. You might see a hint of irritation or distance on his face. What you don't see is the way his mind becomes a hall of mirrors, every reflection showing him a slightly distorted version of himself. Not handsome enough, not accomplished enough, not confident enough, not interesting enough. He feels himself shrinking in comparison, even though you don't see him that way at all. It's a strange mixture of sadness and fear that floods him. Not heartbreak, but something quieter and more corrosive. He worries that the other man might shine in ways he doesn't, that you might notice qualities he has long believed he lacks. The fear isn't that you'll fall for the other man. The fear is that you'll see through him, that you'll recognize the cracks he has spent years trying to seal, that you'll compare him not to the world, but to the version of himself he desperately wants to be and feels he is failing to reach. Sometimes this fear erupts as anger, not because he's angry at you, but because anger is easier to feel than shame. Anger gives him something to push against, while shame pulls him inward like a collapsing star. He might feel disgusted with himself for caring so much, for reacting so intensely, for feeling so small. And when disgust mixes with shame, it creates a tension that makes him withdraw, both to protect himself and to avoid showing you what he's battling internally. It's heartbreaking, because the person he's running from isn't you, it's himself. This is where many misunderstandings begin, because you see his silence as distance, his coldness as judgment, his stiffness as punishment. You might feel sadness or frustration rising inside you. You didn't do anything wrong. You weren't disrespectful. You weren't flirting. You were living, laughing, being yourself. And yet suddenly you're unsure, trying to navigate the emotional fog he can't explain. It's unfair, and your frustration is justified. No one likes feeling responsible for an insecurity that isn't theirs. But beneath that frustration, if you look carefully, you'll see something incredibly human. A man who seems outwardly strong might secretly believe he is not good enough. A man who looks calm on the outside might feel like he's drowning on the inside. A man who stands tall in public might collapse internally in private moments of doubt, triggered by something as simple as you smiling at another man's joke. This is where fear mixes with vulnerability. Men aren't taught to show fear. They're taught to fight it, hide it, conquer it. They're taught to keep their voices steady, their expressions neutral, their insecurities concealed. So when fear rises inside them, they suppress it until it feels like pressure building against the walls of their chest. That pressure often leaks out as withdrawal, not to hurt you, but because they don't know how to let you see them this raw. Vulnerability, for many men, feels like a trap. It reminds them of moments in the past when opening up led to humiliation or rejection. It reminds them of times they weren't chosen, or were compared, or were dismissed. So they retreat behind the armor they've worn most of their lives. But the irony is painful. The armor that makes him feel safe is the very thing that makes you feel shut out. Sometimes, when his insecurity flares, he remembers an old version of himself. A boy waiting to be picked for a team but always chosen last. A teenager who tried to impress someone and was met with indifference. A young man who poured his heart into someone who didn't value it. These memories aren't conscious in the moment, but they shape his reaction. They rise like ghosts, whispering lies into his mind, telling him he isn't enough, telling him someone else could give you something he cannot. You wouldn't recognize those memories. He rarely talks about them. They're woven into the fabric of his self-worth in ways even he doesn't fully understand. But you might sense them in the sudden distance in his eyes, the stillness in his body, the forced neutrality in his tone. And here's the thing he would never admit out loud. When he feels insecure, he wants comfort, but fears looking weak. He wants reassurance, but fears becoming a burden. He wants to be vulnerable, but fears disappointing you. That conflict, wanting closeness while fearing exposure, creates a sadness that sits heavy in his chest. He feels the weight of it long after the moment passes, long after the party ends, long after the conversation fades. Yet, tucked inside that sadness is something surprisingly hopeful. His insecurity is not a sign that he loves you any less, it's a sign that he loves you deeply. He wants to be worthy of you. He wants to be the man he imagines you deserve. He wants to stand beside you without feeling the echo of inadequacy pulling at him. And the truth is, he doesn't need you to fix his insecurity. He doesn't need you to carry it. He doesn't need you to make yourself smaller so he feels larger. What he needs, what he secretly hopes for, is simply to be seen, not as the strong or confident version he tries to project, but as the complex, imperfect, deeply human soul he truly is. When he feels inadequate, he's not asking you to change your behavior. He's asking, silently, for a reminder that the cracks in his armor do not make him unworthy of love. And that reminder, spoken gently or shown quietly, has the power to reach places inside him that he has kept locked for years. There's a moment every man dreads, though he may never admit it out loud. It's not the moment he feels jealous or insecure or unsure of himself. It's the moment he realizes someone has seen the crack in his armor. That sliver of softness he worked so hard to hide, suddenly exposed under the wrong light. For men, weakness is not simply uncomfortable, it's dangerous. Because they were raised in a world that taught them weakness is the one thing they are never allowed to show. You can almost feel the weight of that cultural script when you look at him during those tense moments. He isn't just reacting to you talking with another man. He's reacting to a lifetime of messages drilled into him long before you ever entered his life. Messages that told him a man must be secure, strong, unbothered, in control. Messages that told him he must win the girl, keep the girl, protect the girl. Messages that told him if he wavers, even for a breath, he is failing at being a man. This script is written so deeply into him that half the time he doesn't even realize he's following it. But his body remembers, his posture remembers, his tone remembers. When he senses another man near you, it isn't only instinct or insecurity that stirs. It's the fear of falling short of the man he believes he's supposed to be. Imagine being raised with the constant warning that any sign of vulnerability could be used against you. Imagine growing up hearing phrases like, "Man up, don't be soft, be strong, don't let anyone disrespect you." Imagine the pressure of knowing that every mistake, every hesitation, every emotional tremor could be interpreted as weakness. That pressure doesn't fade with age. It grows heavier. It seeps into relationships, identity, self-worth. It turns tenderness into something he has to ration, something he must deliver carefully so it never looks like neediness. When another man speaks to you, even innocently, that script wakes up. Not because he sees the other man as a threat to your loyalty, but because he sees him as a threat to his masculinity. He begins to judge himself through the eyes of the room. Will anyone think he's failing to protect? Will anyone think he's less of a man for letting someone else get too close? Will anyone see him as passive, weak, or inferior? That fear doesn't sound rational, but it doesn't have to be. Shame rarely is. You may feel a sting of irritation because you didn't ask to be placed in the middle of this unspoken battle. There's a sharpness to that irritation, a sense of unfairness. You weren't doing anything wrong. You weren't crossing a line. Yet suddenly you're being caught in a script you never agreed to play a role in. That frustration is real, and it deserves acknowledgement. But there's another emotion that surfaces alongside it, something softer, something like empathy. When you see the tension in his shoulders, or the silence settling over him, or the forced neutrality in his expression, a part of you recognizes that he isn't angry with you. He's wrestling with ghosts he inherited from generations of men before him. Ghosts of expectations, of shame, of pride, of fear. Ghosts he didn't choose. There's sadness in that realization. Sadness for the boy he once was, told to swallow his feelings. Sadness for the young man who learned that crying makes you weak. Sadness for the adult man who still believes he must earn love by proving himself, performing strength, and never showing how deeply he cares. It's heartbreaking to see someone you love fighting a battle he never asked for, one he believes he must win just to be worthy. Sometimes, when jealousy stirs inside him, it's not jealousy at all. It's humiliation. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but a quiet humiliation that feels like a bruise pressed by an invisible hand. The kind that makes him withdraw, not because he wants to punish you, but because he needs a moment to gather himself. He needs to rebuild the version of masculinity the world taught him to cling to. He steps back not to create distance, but to put the mask back on. You might watch him in these moments and feel a tug of anger, that society conditions men this way. Anger that it spills into your relationship. Anger that he can't simply say what he feels. That anger is valid. Yet woven into it is a tenderness that feels almost painful. Because you also know that what he really wants is to be understood without being judged. To be seen without feeling exposed. To be loved without feeling weak. He lives in a culture that tells him to love passionately but never appear too invested. To care deeply but never look like he cares too much. To protect fiercely but never show fear. To want you desperately but never let it show. This emotional tightrope is exhausting. And when he sees you talking with another man, even harmlessly, it shakes his balance. The fall feels too close. Social media intensifies this pressure. He's not just comparing himself to the men around you, he's comparing himself to thousands of curated male images. Men with perfect bodies, perfect confidence, perfect lifestyles. Men who seem more successful, more charming, more charismatic. These comparisons don't just bruise his ego, they reinforce the script that he must be exceptional just to be enough. Underneath all of this is a fear he rarely voices. The fear of being replaceable. Not because you would leave, but because the script he was given tells him women choose the strongest male, the most confident, the most powerful. Even though modern love isn't built on dominance, his nervous system still reacts as if it is. He isn't fighting other men. He's fighting the fear of not measuring up. And often, when he grows quiet, when his expression tightens, when his voice softens into something tense, he's really fighting to protect his dignity. Not from the outside world, but from that inner voice telling him he's failing at being the man he is supposed to be. If you look closely, you'll see that the silence between you isn't distance. It's pressure. Pressure he carries alone. Pressure he hides because he believes showing it would make him unlovable. Pressure that softens only when he feels safe enough to let go of the script he's been reciting his whole life. And when that moment comes, when he lets you see the man beneath the performance, you'll understand that his discomfort was never rooted in control or distrust. It was rooted in a lifetime of being told he must never appear fragile, especially in front of the woman he loves. There is a turning point in every relationship where understanding becomes more powerful than instinct, and connection becomes stronger than fear. It usually arrives softly, almost quietly, after the tension has settled, but before the distance grows too wide. It's that moment when you look at him, really look, and see not just the man standing in front of you, but the man underneath his defenses, the man beneath the weight of old expectations, the man who has been wrestling with shadows he never learned to name. And something inside you softens, not out of pity, not out of obligation, but out of recognition. Because you realize he isn't your enemy. He isn't trying to police you. He isn't trying to restrict you. He is trying to protect the connection in the only ways he knows how, even when those ways are flawed, messy, or shaped by pain he never asked to carry. Understanding him doesn't mean accepting behavior that hurts you. It doesn't mean shrinking yourself or silencing your joy. It doesn't mean bending your life to soothe every tremor of his insecurity. What it means is choosing clarity over conflict, presence over panic, gentleness over guessing. It means responding to his fear in a way that keeps both of you whole. This begins in the quiet spaces, long after the party is over, long after the laughter fades, long after the moment that unsettled him has passed. Maybe you're both in the car on the drive home, the night air cool against the windows, the city lights sliding across his face in soft fragments. Maybe he's unusually quiet, staring ahead as if trying to steady something inside himself. You can feel the distance between you, not a canyon, but a shift in temperature, a coldness that wasn't there before. You reach across the space and speak gently, not with accusation, not with assumption, but with curiosity. Curiosity is the doorway to understanding. Curiosity lifts the weight off his chest. Curiosity tells him he is safe to be human with you, safe to speak, safe to feel. A simple question can open that door. I felt you pull away a little tonight. What was happening for you? No sharpness, no edge, just truth. He might say he's fine. He might shrug. Years of conditioning can't be undone in a single breath. But your softness makes the ground beneath him steadier. And if he feels even a little safe, he may give you a small piece of what he's been holding back. A sentence, a sigh, a vulnerable glance that tells you he's trying. Sometimes he needs help finding the words he doesn't have. Not help in the form of pressure, but help in the form of understanding without judgment. You might share your perspective, not as a challenge, but as an offering. Something like, I care about you, and I want us to stay close even in uncomfortable moments. Or, I want to understand you, not fix you. These words are bridges. And what he doesn't know, what he often doesn't even dare to hope, is that you're not asking him to be perfect. You're asking him to be present. Reassurance becomes powerful here, not the kind that coddles, not the kind that erases boundaries, but the kind that speaks to the boy inside him who learned long ago that caring too much was dangerous. Reassurance is not about telling him he's the only man you'll ever notice. It's not about pretending other people don't exist. It's about letting him feel chosen, not because you have to choose him, but because you want to. Sometimes this reassurance arrives in small gestures. A soft touch on his arm, the way your voice lowers when you say his name, the warmth in your eyes when you look at him, as if nothing in the room matters as much as he does. These gestures sink deeper than big speeches. They calm the trembling parts of him he doesn't show. But reassurance without boundaries can turn into exhaustion, and no relationship can survive when one person shrinks to soothe the other. Love asks for balance, not sacrifice. So there will also come a moment where you speak the truth he needs to hear, the truth that protects you both. I'm here for you, but I can't walk through the world cautiously to manage your fear. I need you to trust me, and I need you to trust yourself. This kind of boundary isn't a wall. It's a frame, a way of shaping the relationship so neither of you disappears inside it. And when spoken with love instead of frustration, it doesn't push him away. It invites him to rise. Boundaries are not punishments. They are invitations to grow. If he loves you, and more importantly, if he wants to love you well, he will meet you there. Maybe slowly, maybe awkwardly, but earnestly. Because men don't change when they feel attacked. They change when they feel understood. They change when the connection matters more than their pride. They change when they realize they can be vulnerable without losing respect. They change when love doesn't demand perfection, but does require responsibility. Over time, moments that used to ignite fear inside him begin to feel different. He sees another man talking to you, and instead of tensing, he breathes. Instead of assuming threat, he remembers the safety between you. Instead of withdrawing, he stays present. Instead of questioning your loyalty, he trusts the relationship you've built together. And there's a quiet beauty in that shift. The kind of beauty that makes relationships resilient. The kind that turns fear into intimacy. The kind that transforms insecurity into partnership. Because something powerful happens once he realizes he can be fully human with you. The shame loses its grip. The instinct calms. The masculinity script weakens. The armor softens. Not because you broke it, but because he finally believes he doesn't need it with you. He steps toward you warmer, clearer, more grounded, and the space between you closes in a way that feels earned, not assumed. You feel it too, that soft exhale of relief when two people grow closer instead of drifting apart. And as the connection deepens, you begin to understand the truth behind his discomfort. It was never about control, or jealousy, or possession. It was about fear that came from love, fear that came from old wounds, fear that came from a lifetime of expectations he never chose. But love, when held with both softness and strength, has a way of calming even the oldest fears. It doesn't erase them, but it teaches both hearts how to move gently around them. And that's how a relationship becomes a place not just where you are loved, but where both of you learn to become braver versions of yourselves.